Shalom, brother and sister truth seekers. So we come to part 3 of this quest to understand the timing of first fruits and the Feast of Weeks. And this has been a progression, definitely a journey. And I can't say, I think getting closer and closer, I was feeling a little. This is just one of the hardest holy days, it seems, to try and understand the timing of, and I have been trying to dig in and search out truth on this matter, and it has led to some interesting discussions again, and I was a little confused at different points during this past week as I dug a little deeper into the original languages, the Greek and Hebrew. And so I'm just gonna share what I've come across this past week, and in the hopes that maybe we can have a little more iron sharpening iron before this time gets here, and we can hopefully we can all work together, reason this out. But so where things left off again is an examination of the two verses, Leviticus 23:14 and then Joshua 5:11. And again, it's the food types that are being discussed, and I spent a lot of time kind of looking, trying to dig into the original language to verify what's going on here, and in the end, I almost just got more confused. The source I was looking into gave, I guess I'll share what they were saying. So this is Leviticus 23:14, this is Joshua 5:11, and these show you the different words at play here in the original language. I guess I'd prefer it without the vowel points, but I think this is reasonably accurate to the original. If anyone has any feedback on that or concerns about that, let me know. But anyway, there was something that threw a monkey wrench in all of this, and that was that this word here was lechem. So as you can see, or I guess it was this one, lechem, bread. And it was told me that lechem is leavened bread, and so it was kind of really confusing at first, and it was like, oh no. Well, because if this is saying ye shall eat neither leavened bread, nor partial corn, nor green ears, until the selfsame day you have brought an offering, it would seem this is saying you can't eat bread until this day, so it's like leavened bread. So it's like, how could that be? How could first fruits be during the week of unleavened bread? Because, I mean, this verse seems to be implying that they can eat these things maybe on or after the day they bring the offering. So if it was during the week of unleavened bread, they surely couldn't have permission to eat bread on or after first fruits falling during the week of unleavened bread, because you're only supposed to eat unleavened bread during that week. So that was a little confusing, and I really had to try and dig to get an answer on that. And if anyone has any feedback on that, please let me know. But I did eventually come across another truth seeker who said there needs to be a qualifier in the original language that qualifies lechem as leavened bread. So this might not necessarily always mean leavened bread. There has to be a qualifier that kind of, or a modifier that makes it so. And I remember getting into this a little bit in the Greek New Testament, kind of, I think there's a word, artos, in the Greek, that it gets into this discussion of leavened versus unleavened bread for the Last Supper, the Passover, and all this. And it was interesting to note that I think artos could be either type of bread, either leavened or unleavened, and it depended on the context or a modifier. Anyway, what I'm being told is it's similar for this leavened lechem. And so an example of that would be, the example I was given was actually a few verses later. Here in chapter 23, verse 17, it says, "Ye shall bring out your habitations 2 loaves, with 10 deals of flour, blah blah blah. They shall be baked with leaven." So this was explained to be like that modifier that shows that this was actually raised bread. And so the claim is that that modifier is not here, that qualifier or whatever. So it's not talking about leavened bread here. So I guess what that means is it kind of goes back to the possibility that because if it was leavened bread, that would seem to almost show the opposite of what I've been talking about in the first 2 videos, where it would actually seem to imply that first fruits would have had to fall outside. But it does seem it's a split definition of the Hebrew language. So if anyone's like a Hebrew language, knows the Hebrew language really good and wants to jump in and share their thoughts, please let me know. But one individual seems to say this is the only way this is translated, and another individual is saying it can be either or, and it depends on the modifier and the context. So that was interesting, but I mean, this week was really a back and forth because of this, and it was like, oh, now nothing makes sense. But, so that was an interesting point. There's another interesting point that got brought up in discussion, and that is that Joshua 5:11, and if you read Leviticus 23:14, it's talking about these specific food types, and there's something significant about that, because you have to realize they were eating manna, I guess, in the wilderness. That was their bread, and I don't believe they were eating like corn or green ears or anything. Like, they were eating manna, and you can see in a verse, Joshua chapter 5 verse 12, it says, "And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten the old corn of the land." Well, that's interesting. It's funny the way the things kind of pop up after the fact. But the point of it is, they were eating manna. Certainly, it appears they were eating manna up to Passover, and I don't know if that means they were eating unleavened bread made out of manna for this Passover event, but it doesn't appear like they ate the corn of the land, and they made unleavened cakes and had this parched corn until after Passover, right? So that's what this seems to be saying here. So if you think about it, like, they're in the wilderness and they're eating manna, and they're not eating any of these things that are being described in this verse. And that's significant because, this instruction is specifically saying, when ye come into the land. So I don't know if they were keeping the Feast of Weeks or even first fruits when they were wandering around in the wilderness, but this is definitely saying, when ye come into the land and reap the harvest. This is key, the harvest. And we're going to, hopefully I remember to talk about that in a minute. But this, if you can imagine, they came into the land. When they came into the land, they were to do this, and so before they were in the wilderness and they were eating manna, and they weren't eating any of these things. So it's again seems to be a pretty significant tie that Joshua is saying they came into the land, they ate the Passover, and then in this verse they ate the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, and the unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And it mentions in the next verse that the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land. And the children of manna anymore. So it's again very interesting, and seems very plausible that this is exactly related to what is being discussed here and Leviticus 14. Okay, so I mean, it's talking about bread, leavened or unleavened, but I think the context is saying that that would be unleavened. Ring in on that if you have any concerns about that or thoughts. But certainly the corn or the green ears, the point is they weren't eating any of this. They weren't eating grains in the wilderness, they were eating manna. So the timing of this is, again, when you enter the land. And that's exactly what happened. They entered the land and then they ate the corn. So now I just want to talk about some of the comments I received. And again, iron sharpening iron, discussion among truth seekers. It seems I've heard this at least a few times from various different truth seekers. There's this discussion about old versus new, and you can see that here in Joshua 5:11. It says they did eat the old corn of the land. Okay, so I guess I can see where old is coming into play here in Joshua, but what I don't see is where is the quote-unquote new coming into play here in Leviticus 23. Like, maybe I'm just missing it, but I don't see anything, unless I'm missing it. I just don't see anything in here that's specifically saying new. What I see in here is talking about a harvest. And so, I mean, as far as like new versus old, what I see is a harvest being mentioned here in Leviticus 23, and then here in Joshua it is saying old, but I guess and you don't know much about agriculture, but you know, it seems you wouldn't eat something until it's ready to harvest, and so its life cycle is over by the time you're getting ready to harvest it, so it would be old, like it's not new. It's old and ready to harvest. So I guess I'm not exactly seeing this connection or this point that I seem to be hearing. Again, from a few different truth seekers have tried to bring this point up, and yes, I'm seeing old here, but I'm only seeing harvest here in Leviticus, and maybe I'm just missing it, but please point that out if I am. I guess there's one more thing which I can't really say I've looked into too deeply yet, but I've kind of heard some long thoughts about it, from both perspectives of this thing, and it has to do with the timing of the Savior's death, burial, and resurrection during his Passion Week. And I just wanted to mention that if people are searching out this matter, I still need to look into that. And I just wanted to make you guys aware of it, that it does sound like there's a discussion going on, and like I said, at this point I've only kind of heard just the quick points being discussed for either perspective. First fruits falling during the week of unleavened bread, or first fruits falling after the week of unleavened bread, and both of them seem potentially plausible. Maybe I'll have to look into that one more, but there's something potentially to, the account when you read how the Savior rose from the grave and told one, who was it, Mary Magdalene, not to touch him because he had not yet ascended to his Father. So there was definitely something. I don't know if that was because she was a woman or I don't know why exactly that was, but this is the kind of discussion that's being had, and I guess it's trying to figure out exactly when he ascended. But it was a lot of text and a lot of timeline thinking, and both perspectives were saying it works out their way. So that's something I'm going to have to continue to look into, but I just want to make people aware of that. If you check out the comments in part 2, you'll see where one of these perspectives is being discussed. And if you're curious to know what the other perspective is, I will be looking into that myself, and I can kind of point you in the direction I think where that discussion is happening on another video on YouTube. So I guess that's it for now. Like from the looks of this, like it's still looking pretty significant that Leviticus 23:14 is talking about them eating these specific food types, and you know it's specifically when you come into the land, and they were eating manna prior to this, but when they came into the land, you know, it says the manna ceased, and they were free to eat these things, and they give the timing of these things. And you know, they weren't eating these things when they were in the wilderness, they were eating manna. So I guess I'm still kind of leaning towards that. So that said, this works. I guess we're really getting down to the wire here. I'm definitely still going to be looking into it, but I guess we're 13th, so we're right around here right now, the 6th Sabbath, according to, I guess, my current understanding. So there's pretty much one more week to think about this. So I will be continuing to think about this. If anyone has any additional points or thinks that I'm missing a point, please bring it up. I'm definitely open-minded, definitely want to be diligent to try and leave no stone unturned to answer this question. So I guess, but I guess I would like to hear more about a discussion on this, because this seems pretty clear. So I'd like to hear more about why this isn't the link right here, because it seems kind of almost like one of those things that hits you between the eyes. They came into the land, they ate this food. But anyway, that's all I got for now. Please let me know if you have any other thoughts, and shalom. May Allah bless you as you continually seek out His truth and love with a pure heart.